Anchoring effect: why can Vietnam's population increase book prices? You may not know that the human brain is very easily influenced by mental anchors. These mental anchors can influence our subconscious thoughts through things that are completely unrelated. In fact, just mentioning Vietnam's population can increase the amount customers are willing to pay for a product. To apply the anchoring effect well, first, let's learn a bit about this fascinating phenomenon. What is the anchoring effect? According to the anchoring effect, people often rely on the information presented first to make comparisons and decisions. Simply put, if I tell you the cost to produce something, let's say magazine A costs 40,000 VND, when estimating the cost of book B, you will likely anchor to that first number and use it as a comparison point. To understand this better, let's take a look at some interesting psychology experiments. How old was Gandhi? In an experiment by Strack and Mussweiler in 1997, participants were divided into two groups. Group A was asked, did Mahatma Gandhi die before or after the age of 9? Group B was asked, did Mahatma Gandhi die before or after the age of 140? This is a simple question. Everyone knows the correct answer. However, just by asking this question, participants' thoughts were anchored. Group A was anchored to the number 9 and Group B to 140. Then came the important part. Both groups were asked, at what age did Mahatma Gandhi die? Cubed, your estimate will revolve around this number, even though the actual cost of a book depends on many other factors like thickness, color, paper quality, copyright fees, publishing licenses, and most importantly, A is a magazine, not a book like B. Due to the anchoring effect, the average estimated age from Group A was 50, while Group B guessed 67, a significant difference. In other words, Group A clung to the number 9 from the earlier question to lower their estimate, while Group B clung to 140 and adjusted down. The result was a big gap in estimated ages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They divided participants into two groups and gave them the following task. Within 5 seconds, back in 1974, leading researchers Tversky and Kahneman conducted a similar study. Group A: calculate 1 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8. Group B: calculate 8 7 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. But the point is the large gap between the two. If you're curious how old Gandhi really was, try guessing first, then Google it. But because participants had only 5 seconds and couldn't actually do the full math, they had to guess. Group A was anchored by the low starting number, while Group B was anchored by 8. As a result, their estimates diverged significantly. It's obvious these are just reversed versions of the same equation. The product is identical. Of course, neither group's estimate was correct. You can even try this experiment with your friends. Divide them into two groups, give each a different version of the question, and see what they estimate. That's why, when writing ads, you can use irrelevant data to anchor your customers' thinking before presenting your product price. For example, in a Facebook ad for the book Get Into Your Customer's Mind, the ad might say, for more details, refer to the original study. For instance, if the English version of the book Get Into Your Customer's Mind is sold on Amazon for over 200,000 VND customers, we'll likely use that as a reference to estimate the price of the Vietnamese version. The decoy effect, the difference between the two groups was huge. Group A guessed 512, while Group B estimated 2,250. The book Get Into Your Customer's Mind will give you foundational knowledge in psychology. In reality, the researchers used the median value of each group's answers. Of course, both estimates were wrong, but you can't blame them. Mental math in 5 seconds is tough. Application in business: when customers look down, everything else seems cheaper by comparison. 1. Using irrelevant information to anchor thinking. Since people's minds often anchor to the first piece of information they see, they tend to make subconscious decisions based on it. If you're like the majority of 90 million Vietnamese people, you probably love business. Doing business without understanding marketing is a huge shortcoming. But right now, you're getting free shipping, so it's just 100,000 VND for you. James Irving Holcomb, in the book Salesology, also encouraged showing customers the value they're being given rather than letting them take it for granted. The number 90 million has little to do with book pricing, but when placed first, it anchors people's thinking and thus influences their price estimates. The author of the book conducted an informal experiment using this concept in the iSocial community group on Facebook, and members tended to estimate the price higher than the actual cover price. Why use inferior products as reference points? Of course, using more relevant metrics will be more effective because the target audience will evaluate based on similar information. Both statements communicate the same price, but the second one adds a positive psychological effect. Which one would you choose? 2. Changing the unit to anchor thinking. Tversky and Uy found that not only do people anchor to the first piece of information, but also to the unit of that anchor. They might first show potential buyers a less attractive home with a higher price so that when they view the next house, it seems much more reasonable. In other words, once used effectively, these tactics almost always produce results, regardless of the target's resistance. The more you can smoothly combine them, the more powerful they become. The only limit is your creativity. They might boost your sales temporarily, but for long-term success, your product must be truly good. And you, the seller, must genuinely care. The buyer's thinking has already been anchored by the first home. Simply put, if the anchor is 1,000 USD, customers will adjust their estimate in the unit of thousands of USD. But if the anchor is 995 United States dollars, they'll adjust their estimate in smaller units, tens or even single USD. For instance, some hotels may show guests a less appealing room first. After viewing it, the guest is taken to another room that costs a little more. They might already have a polished, high-quality, design-ready, but first show a slightly less impressive version to the client. Once the client gives feedback, they reveal the final design, which appears much more professional by comparison. This makes the better version look more valuable and reduces the need for revisions, but is larger, airier, and more comfortable, and they naturally choose the second option. You can apply this in pricing strategies. 3. Changing the product order to anchor thinking. Some restaurants or cafes use this trick. Instead of listing items from lowest to highest price, they place the most expensive item at the top of the menu. Of course, this could backfire if customers only look at the first item and feel shocked by its high price. If using this technique, you should position the anchor in a way that makes it easier to compare with other, cheaper items. 4. Emphasize total price before discount. For example, when asked about the price of an item that normally costs 100,000 VND with a delivery fee of 20,000 VND, instead of saying, it's 100,000 VND, free shipping, say, it's 120,000 VND total. This way, you show the customer how much of a discount or benefit they're receiving. It's also a way to anchor them back to the 120,000 number, making them feel like they're saving more and increasing satisfaction compared to just saying 100,000 VND upfront. 5. Some real estate agents use this technique. Of course, this can also be applied in other industries. Designers or agencies often use this when pitching projects. This technique is frequently used alongside other psychological principles, such as the decoy effect, the halo effect, and contrast bias. However, the danger lies here. The authors have yet to find any research showing a method that completely neutralizes the power of cognitive anchoring. That said, remember that no technique works in all situations. The best approach is to test before mass implementation. And please use these techniques responsibly and ethically.